and welcome to the Cabinet Learning Series. In this video we're going to be going over our module Cabinet Books. Cabinet Books is a great tool we have. It's an integration between QuickBooks and Safe. It allows you to enter a transaction into Cabinet Books and it posts that transaction into QuickBooks while simultaneously filing the document into the correct vendor or customer folder in Safe for you. So it really helps eliminate duplicate entry. And what we're going to be going over is we're going to talk about, get to the next slide here. We're talking about how to enter transactions into books. We're going to talk about adding new vendors or customers, and talk about sending the documents that we file through a workflow once they've been filed. So the first thing, let's go ahead and open up Books. And so when you first log in, this is what it will look like. You can see these buttons and everything are grayed out. That means we're not connected yet. So what we need to do is open up a company setup. So right here we have our company setup and we have a drop down. And you can see I only have one company setup here, but I'm going to go ahead and click on it to open it up. And down at the bottom you can see it says it's retrieving the QuickBooks data. So it's going to QuickBooks and pulling in all of the customers and vendors and getting all of the information from there. And as soon as we're connected, we'll see down in the bottom left it says done, and these buttons are no longer grayed out. That means we're ready to go. So next step, let's go ahead and bring in a document. And there's a couple different ways we can do that. You can scan, so if you have a scanner hooked up to your computer, you can scan directly here into Books. If the documents are already on your computer, maybe that you got them as an attachment in an email, or you scanned from a MFP, anything like that. You can open them from there. And also, if I go to File, I can actually open from Safe. So if you have these invoices already filed into Safe, but the transactions are not posted to QuickBooks yet, you can actually pull those documents in from Safe and work on them as well. But I'm just going to open a document I have here on my desktop. Bring in some invoices. And there we go. So you can see that it's going to give us a thumbnail list on the left-hand side of each document that I brought in. And when I click on the first document, it's going to give me a preview here in the middle of the screen. So now I need to decide what document it is so that I can choose how I want to file it. So this is an invoice. This is one of my vendor bills. And so you can see here I have all my different options. And if I click on QuickBooks entry up here at the top, I can see them as well. So we have bill entry, payment entry, credit card entry, purchase order entry, or a miscellaneous doc. If you just want to file a document that's associated maybe with one of these other types of transactions, you can do that as well. But this is a bill entry, so I'm going to go ahead and click on bill entry here. And it's going to open up a panel on the right hand side of the screen. So now all I need to do is go down the middle column here, or this panel on the right hand side, and fill out this information. So first thing, I can see that this is Bank of any city. So I'm going to pick that vendor here from the drop down list. I can either click on the drop down to get the full list, or I can just start typing in the name and it will narrow that list down for me. I'm going to put the date in here. So let's see, that's December 30th, 2004, an old one. And I'm going to type in my invoice number, which is the reference number, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so I can see that a little bit better. There we go. That's 12041. And now if you do use purchase orders, you can have the option to turn this Pick POs button on. That is here under company setup. You have the checkbox for use POs. So if it sees a purchase order that's available for that vendor, this button will no longer be grayed out, and you could tie this to a purchase order if you wanted to. But we're just going to keep on filing it as an invoice. So I'm going to scroll down, see my total. It's $100. And then the rest of the information is just like you would fill out as if you were entering the transaction into QuickBooks. I'm going to choose the account it's for. Say checking, choose the class. And this is all getting pulled from QuickBooks. I can type in a memo here if I want. So if you filed in Safe. And then as far as Safe is concerned, I'm going to tell it where I want to file there. First, it's asking me how many pages to file. So right now it says 1, meaning it's going to take this first document here and it's only going to use that as this invoice. But let's say that these first 2 pages are part of the invoice. I would change this to 2, and it would take both the top two documents in my thumbnail queue over here and combine them into one document and file it into SAFE as that one invoice. But I know that this is a one-page invoice, so I'm going to keep that as a 1. I can choose which tab I want to file the document into, and I can apply sensitivity or retention to it, as well as any keywords, or I can add on to the title of the document. Now, whenever I file this document into SAFE, it automatically uses a certain naming convention, which I'll show you once we file it. But if you were to want to add extra information onto that document title, you could do that there. But once you're done filling out this information, all I need to do is click on Add Bill and File. And this is telling me that there's a bill in QuickBooks with the same reference number for this vendor. Do I still want to add the bill? I'm going to click on Yes. That's okay for this instance. Then it's telling me that the bill for checking was added. I'm going to click OK. And then it's telling me that the bill was filed into SAFE. So I'll click OK. So as you can see, once again, we've had it automatically post to QuickBooks and file the document in SAFE. So let's go take a look at what that looks like here. So I'm going to open up SAFE first, and I'm in my vendors cabinet, and you have a folder for each vendor. So we just filed one for City of Bayshore, so I'm going to open up that folder. Oh no, we did it for Bank of Any City, I apologize. And there we are, Bank of Any City. And here we go. So here's the bill we just filed. I can see the date that it was filed. And here's all the information. It's already gone through a workflow, and we'll talk about how it automatically goes through a workflow in a little bit. But there we go. So we know the document's been filed in the correct vendor folder. And then if I go into QuickBooks, we'll go here to Vendors, Bank of Any City. Here is the one that we filed today. I can open that up. Oh, actually, this is not the one we filed today. Let me open up the one we filed today. There we go, because now I can see we've got the memo there that I typed in, filed in SAFE. We have the one item for checking in the amount of $100 for the landscaping class. You can see here's the invoice number we typed in and everything, and there's all the information. So again, it's a nice way. It's a nice way to do both at the same time. File the document into SAFE and enter the transaction into QuickBooks, so you don't have to do them both individually. Now coming back here to books, a couple other different things we can do. Let's move on to this next invoice here, which is a Bayshore Cal Oil invoice. So I'm gonna change my vendor now back to Bayshore. Date still looks good. And I'm gonna choose the invoice number 12345. And then let's say you actually itemized your invoices instead of doing it by just the total, which some companies do, and then some companies choose to itemize the invoice. We can do that so by clicking on this items button here. And this is going to bring up a line item window. So then I can pick the item. So let's say some citrus trees, since this is a landscaping company. I can choose which customer to apply it to. Say this is for Adam's Candy Shop. I can put a description if I'd like. I can put the quantity, and let's say 10. Say they were $40 a piece. I can choose a class, say landscaping, and add. So far we've gotten one line item. You can see the running total so far, and we're going to want to make sure that by the time we're done that this matches our total down here. So I'm going to add my next item. So let's say that we have some fruit trees. Another 10 there, but these cost $50 a piece. Add that. Now we're at 900, and I'm just going to keep going. Some lumber. Let's say we got one of those for $3,000. It's very expensive lumber. Now we're at $3,900. We're almost at our total. I'm going to add a couple more things here. Trimming for $100. And then just to make the math right, let's add some rocks that cost $323. Add that, and there we go. So you can see we have all of our line items. We've assigned them to a certain customer or class. Our running total here matches the total on our invoice. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Done. It fills out the amount here for us. And then I can go through and add the rest of the information, so the terms and everything, and just hit add bill and file. Once again, it's saying that it sees this reference number already. I'm going to click on yes. So it's added the transaction into QuickBooks, and then it's filed the document into Safe. So now this time if we go into QuickBooks and go to Bayshore Cal Oil, and let's see, this is the one we did today, I believe. Nope. Apologize, there we go. Alright, I'm going to make this full screen. So now you can see not only has it created the transaction, but we do have each line item that I entered below. We have all the same quantities, the costs, and everything like that, all ready to go. So now this bill has been entered as an unpaid bill into QuickBooks, and you're done. And if we were to jump over here to Safe again, and let's take a look at Bayshore Cal Oil Service. There we go, there's our document. Once again, it's gone through a workflow. And we can see a preview over here to the right and everything. Alright, so the process is the same no matter what kind of transaction you're entering. You just choose what transaction, and a panel will come up on the right hand side, and you just go through and you enter the payment details just like you would if you were entering the transaction into QuickBooks. And now let's talk about, let's say you have a new vendor or a new customer and you need to add them. Instead of having to go to QuickBooks and add them as a vendor and then going into Safe and creating a brand new folder, we can do it all at the same time here. So let's go to Add Modify Vendor. And all I have to do is I'm just going to start typing over the information that's here. Let's say Zaxby's is our new vendor. Just fill out some of this information. And you don't have to fill out all of it, but whatever you do fill out will populate the folder indexes. Okay, that looks good. Alright, so once I'm done typing out all this information, then I'm going to choose where I want this vendor to be added. So if I check the box here for QuickBooks, it's going to add that vendor into QuickBooks. And if I check it for Safe, it's going to also create a folder for this vendor in Safe. And that's what I want to happen, so I'm going to check both boxes and click on Add. And click on Done. So now let's go look at Safe. And I'm going to go back to my folder list, click on Find, and let's go all the way to the end. I know it starts with a Z. And there's our Zaxby's folder. So you can see we have a folder, and all the information's filled out with what I just typed in, so you can see that information here. And then if I were to go to QuickBooks, right away, it's already highlighted. We have our Zaxby's vendor ready to go. So again, I can't say it enough. It just helps eliminate that duplicate entry. You don't have to go into QuickBooks and enter it, and then into Safe enter it. You can do it all here at one time in Books. You can even modify a vendor. So again, go to Add Modify Vendor here from the QuickBooks entry dropdown. And let's say Bank of Any City moved location. Let's say they went to 300 Main Street. I just change that information here, click on Modify, and Done. And then right away, let's go to the top of the list. Bank of Any City, now it says 300 Main Street. And QuickBooks, Bank of Any City, now it says 300 Main Street up here. So again, just makes it a whole lot easier to change that information everywhere at once. Alright, so then the last thing I want to talk about is workflow. Now there's two different types of workflow we can use. You can do a rule-based workflow, so it's going to be using a rule. It's going to go through a set structure for an approval process, or you can do a manual workflow, which is an ad hoc, meaning the user decides who to send it to, and then once that person gets it, they decide who to send it to from there on. There's not really a structure to it, but it does get sent through a workflow. And also you have the ability of the choice of when you want to save the QuickBooks data, or when you want that transaction to be posted. By default, when this is checked, that means as soon as I hit File, Add Bill and File, that transaction gets posted to QuickBooks automatically. But let's say you don't want that transaction posted until the workflow is fully approved. I'm going to uncheck this, and let's go ahead and add this Bayshore invoice here. So I'm going to type in my vendor. So this is for Bayshore Water. Put an invoice number in there. Put the amount. Alright, so I'm going to click on Add Bill and File. Say it was filed into Safe, but you'll notice it didn't say that it was posted into QuickBooks. You only got one pop-up saying it was filed in Safe. So now if we go to the Bayshore Water folder in Safe, you can see here's the bill, but this time there's an XML document attached to it. Now that is the QuickBooks transaction information, but it's not going to be posted to QuickBooks until this bill is fully approved. So this right now, if I right click and trace, it's with the accounting department. So once it's fully approved, when I go back in here to books, I can do this each day. I can go to workflow, view workflow status. I'll be able to see the transactions still in workflow. So you can see these are all the ones that are still in workflow. Here's that Bayshore Water one that we just filed. And here's the transactions that have been approved and stored into QuickBooks. But basically, once it's approved, all I have to do is click on Update, and it's going to search through and see all of the transactions that have been approved in Safe Workflow, and it's going to then post them into QuickBooks. So then once you're done there, you can close out, and that's it. So that's the choice you can have of when you want the transaction to be posted. But let's talk about the different types of rules you can build, the different workflow rules. So I'm going to come here to Workflow and do Add Modify Workflow Rule. And you see I have quite a few rules here. I'm actually going to delete these so that we can kind of get an idea of starting from scratch, what it'll look like. Okay, so I'm going to click on Add to add a new rule. And then we have all these different options of criteria we want the rule to be based off of. We can do a customer name, a name range. We can do it based on the amount of the bill or credit card transaction, whatever kind of transaction you're processing. The QuickBooks class name, if a certain class goes to through a certain workflow rule, you can do that. We're going to do a vendor name range. So I'm going to choose that as my option and click on Next. I'm going to choose my start letter. And so let's say any vendor that's name starts with the letter A through M, that's my range. Click on Next. Now I'm going to choose where I want it to go. So I'm going to say, okay, anything that starts with A to M goes to my user group accounting. Click on Next. And I'll make the rule name vendors A to M. Save that rule. Then it's going to ask me if I want to add another rule, so I'm going to click on Yes. And you can see there's the first rule we made. I'm going to click on Add to do another one. I'm going to do the same vendor name range. And then I'm going to choose this time anything from N to Z goes to my user. So I can do Safe User here. It's going to go to my user, and we'll change this vendor, the rule name to vendors N to Z. Click here to save. No, I don't want to add another rule. And there we go. So in the workflow dropdown, I do have rule-based workflow turned on. You can see I can choose either manual or rule. So I have rule turned on. So the user doesn't have to make any decision. The system's going to know based on this vendor name who to send it to. So it takes a lot of the human error out of where it needs to be sent, and you can make sure it gets sent to the right place every time. Now the last thing I want to talk about is, let's say you're in QuickBooks, and let's open up the bill we made today for Bank of any city. So let's say we're looking at the bill here in QuickBooks, but we want to see the actual bill filed in Safe. What's the easiest way to do that? Well, that's going to be Super Search. And Super Search is installed with Safe, so if you have the Safe client on your computer, that means you also have Super Search. And when you open it up, Super Search will come up as this little widget here that floats on top. So even if I click back to QuickBooks, this is still going to be here. So all I have to do is I'm going to search on the document title, and I'm going to copy this invoice number here. And you can see that as soon as I copy it, it automatically puts it here into the search box. I'm going to click on search. And it's going to go through and search every cabinet, every document title, and there we go. So there's our bill. So you can see that the invoice number was on the bill title, and there we go. So I don't even have to leave QuickBooks. All I have to do is just have Super Search open, floating on top, search for the invoice number, and there we go. Right away I can see the bill. I can see that it's still in a workflow, and I can do anything I need to do from that point forward. Close out of that search window. So, let me exit out of Super Search. We've talked about what Books is. We've talked about how to enter transactions into Books, which has them post to QuickBooks as well as file the documents into Safe. We've talked about adding new vendors and customers, as well as how to send documents through workflow and the different type of workflows that we have. If you have any questions or like more information, please contact your cabinet reseller. You can also shoot us an email at info@cabinetpaperlist.com or give us a call at 800-621-6501. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a great day.